All right, it's Thursday, November 16th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we end up with a two down green day. So in other words, this is a day that took out the low of the previous day. We did not reach our target, which would have been the low here on Tuesday. And instead we closed green. And this could be that reversal signal to head higher. Just like yesterday was a potential two up red day. So we took out the high the previous day, closed lower. And you're kind of anticipating the lows of that day to be taken out. There was a potential, if it would have wanted to follow through strongly, to come down and take out that target, get a little bit of a pullback in this big uptrend that we're in. So that was always a possibility. But also I discussed yesterday how even, this could have been just a pause day in this momentum environment. And maybe if we start above the midpoint of this day and start higher, we could go with that and continue to the upside. Because on the weekly chart, which is still the big picture, continuity is still up. We still have targets up here, but we are at a little bit of exhaustion risk. So today presented an interesting day that could have went either way. And we wanted to just kind of judge how price action opened. And today's a good example of how my methodology kind of comes together, looking at the pre-market range. It's between the blue lines that I always look at, the first 15-minute bar, the nature that algorithms control a lot of these markets, kind of broadening out high and low at different times. Also, I'm looking for always the first directional move of the day and then a second direction, secondary trade towards either the intraday high or low. And a lot of this stuff is discussed in my playlist videos about my overall method. But today was a good example of how it comes together and how, you kind of know what's going on and you kind of know levels that need to be hit, and if certain levels are hit, what should happen next under certain conditions, that type of thing. And I guess I'll get into that now because today, if you look at the 15-minute chart and the structure on the day, you can see it was a day that kind of opened up in the middle of the pre-market range, went up, came down, and then went up again. And that might look very confusing, if you just didn't really take into account the things that I tend to look for. Again, what I look for is not necessarily perfect or the best way to trade, but it's very consistent in terms of always kind of knowing what's going on, some of the key levels and what to look for. And the bottom line is when things come together the right way, I'm usually looking for a directional move early in the day. And then if that holds, kind of a secondary move. And that's the key, foundation of my methodology, just based on the fact that the open and, the higher low of the day usually closes near the open. But again, you can look at playlist videos I've shot on each of those kind of individual things. But in terms of today, just quickly, the opening price action was right in the middle of the pre-market range, and then it was green and it headed higher. Now, I did not buy. That could have been a buy, anticipating the pre-market highs are going to be taken out. And then at that point, you got to judge what happens. And for the fact that it didn't follow through, that's the nature of algorithmic trading, where you look at key levels of liquidity. That sets up different targets. It's different each day. It can be based on yesterday's price action. It can be based on the pre-market range, but whatever it is, once you reach kind of key targets, those are inflection points where anything could happen, either continuation or failure. And that's kind of what you're always looking for at those points. So anyway, it could have been an opening trade where you just decided to buy it here. The reason I didn't buy it is because I also kind of judged the middle, the midpoint of each prior day and want to kind of use that as my reference. So, to me, if I had a momentum day to the upside, it would have occurred above the midpoint of this day, above the pre-market range, and started up out of the gates that way. Here we were starting down kind of near the bottom of yesterday's range, even though, if you look at it here, this 15-minute bar was kind of at the bottom of yesterday's range. So to me, it didn't look like it was going to be strong momentum to take out that high right out of the gates. And if anything, based on this red day, I was kind of anticipating probably the lows being taken out, and I kind of wanted to judge. So in other words, to me, given that I didn't take that trade, if it would have went up and then followed through very strongly, I could have then waited for that first pullback for the secondary move. That was my thinking. But in the meantime, I wanted to actually get more excited on this first up move to see if we got a reversal bar and maybe sell it. And that's what I did. And I kind of, I'll quickly click on it. I actually sold the QQQs, which were a little weaker than the SPY. And I, used that as an opportunity to buy puts. And, it came down here. And took out those lows before reversing. And it was a very small gain for me, but that was the trade I was interested in. I'll get back to the SPY, just given that, this red bar could have had a deeper pullback going, given the failure from yesterday. So as it turned out, the SPY would have offered you the same opportunity, failure, 2 up, 2 down bar here, and that did end up taking out the pre-market lows. Now, in this case, what you're looking for, if this was going to really be a negative day, after you had the 2 down day, you would have had a nice move all the way down, to this low on Tuesday. And you also know this is the key inflection point. This was the first target after you kind of buy puts in here, if you were going to do that. And it came down, took out that as expected to. I often scale out and set up no risk trades when I hit my targets just to play it safe. And I also know we're in an environment here where the big picture is up. So right when it came through here in this big red bar, I didn't know, it could have, if it would have really followed through strongly, I would have felt very comfortable that we could be heading towards these targets down here. But instead, what happened? Price reversed, came right back up through this area. That was an opportunity to, say, and then it hit, went back into the range of that first bar in here. So there it was showing you were likely not going to break down. And this was just the liquidity to the downside, and then it started back up again. And it was also taking out liquidity to the upside, trying, and that's the algorithmic nature of price action when you don't have directional movement going on. And also in the big picture, you kind of know that you are looking for potential buying, opportunities when liquidity is taken out on the downside in this environment. I was kind of talking about that. Once you have exhaustion risk, which it is on all these up days, no real actionable signal according to the strat principles on the daily chart, then you are kind of looking for, liquidity be taken out on the downside of some of the better opportunities. Now, what happened was once I saw it come up here, and then I kind of felt like, okay, that was now, that low was tested and it came back up. So we were back in the uptrend mode on this day, even though I didn't necessarily expect to take out that high. What I did at that point, I went to individual stocks, and the one I liked best was NVIDIA here. So on this move, this in turn took out its high, only came to the halfway point of that bar, and I bought some call options on NVIDIA right here, and I shot some videos, and you can see that went up to take out the high of the day. Orderly pause, second push up. So, once there were other good stocks, I think Microsoft, as I remember, that was another one you could have bought. Once this market came down, only took out the, came to the halfway point of the first bar and started up. So this was kind of a secondary buy here. So instead of actually buying the SPY, because I didn't really think there was enough to take out the highs of the day here, given this kind of opening. There were individual stocks, once I determined that this wasn't going lower, that offered good opportunities, for a secondary type trade once you kind of saw what was going on. So that's just kind of a recap of how my methodology all comes together. Pre-market range, first bar, some of the key levels to look for, how that relates to the environment I know we're in on the daily chart, and obviously how that relates to, the big picture, which is still to the upside, and I always keep that in mind. And that's kind of why I shoot these videos. It keeps me in tune with the market, what I'm looking for, and a lot of this stuff becomes second nature in terms of, how, developing intraday price action or structure, relates to the bigger picture, and I always want to keep that in mind. So, that's why I did want to try a short trade here. That was the art, part of trading, and sometimes that comes into play. I did not want to take that first buy, even though it would have worked out, and if I did take that, I don't know if I mentioned this, and it went up there and took that out and it came right back, I would have immediately broken even, knowing the only way this is going to work is going to have to take out that high and then continue. So I kind of knew that was in play. But if anything, I was looking for the short. I took that. It would have offered me a good no-risk trade. And then but here, down in this area, I was looking for buy opportunities on individual stocks. So it looks like a good reversal day. This could be an end of the week that gets a 2-up day and then reaches that target. If we continue up to those weekly targets up here, this is the type of failure I was kind of looking for. We do have an actionable signal to the upside on Friday. So the only tricky thing it is Friday. And sometimes I don't love, how the week is going to finish up in terms of, strong directional movement. But obviously, this is the signal that you're kind of waiting for in this environment to the upside. So if things open up tomorrow and head that way, you got to take the trade, win or lose. So we'll find out what happens tomorrow, and we'll do a weekly recap at the end of the day.